share with you, young people particularly, a few statistics. Then we can actually develop our story from there. I have decided to share them with you today in the presence of all the parents. I didn't want to call you for a special meeting where we were going to talk about that, because if you were going to go back to the parents and you tell them that he had called us to say this, they would actually be shocked and surprised. Because I want to call this a hard talk, because there are some things that you think should not be said that I'm going to say. So please bear with me, but this is very important. So this is why I'm saying I want to say them in front of the fellow parents, so that they are going to be my witnesses tomorrow. I want to talk about something that is very important in building you up. But this all is coming from the fact that there are some statistics that I would want to share with you first. Then we can go deeper into our story. So when you try to remember about what we are talking about today, don't remember it as something that was preached at church. Or don't remember it as something that the preacher said at church. Don't consider me for a moment as a preacher to you today. But I want you to consider me as your parent. Do you get me? In any case, I qualify to be the father of many of you. As long as you are in predecessor's generation coming down, I am your father. So consider me to be the father that actually is talking to you as the father. Not the preacher for a moment. Please, today I'm not preaching to you, I am talking to you. I want to share with you first the statistics that are national statistics. It's believed that about 60% to almost 70% of the young people that are in tertiary education or that are in tertiary institutions, that are teachers' colleges, polytechnics, universities, about 60 to 70% of those young people, girls and boys, they are HIV positive. You believe that? The statistics says from National AIDS Council, about 60 to 70% of the children that are in tertiary institutions, they are HIV positive. What that means is, if you break it down, in every 100 young people that are trying to learn to be something in life, about 60 of them, they are already HIV positive. They are in tertiary institution because they want to shape their future. But the future has already been ruined before they even shape this other future. That's important for us to actually start there so that we can actually develop our story. Let me go a little bit deeper into the statistics, as the National AIDS Council would actually say. It actually went then into province by province. So I'm actually interested in Masingo province. Certainly, it has a soft spot in my heart because that's my home province anyway. And of course, my footprints of preaching with the rural brethren is actually in Masingo mainly. So I love that province, it being my home province as well. In Masingo province, what National AIDS Council has actually tried and do is to go to the tertiary institutions. In any case, there are plenty of them again in Masingo. I think that's the reason why they started there. I think all of us know, of course, that it's said or it's touted in Zimbabwe that the most educated people come from Masingo province. I mean, it's not me who said that. It's well documented. It's not. It's a fact, of course. She doesn't come from there, but she agrees. So there are plenty institutions of higher learning that are in Masingo province. So the National AIDS Council has actually gone in there and they have visited, or they are still visiting these places of learning, and they are actually distributing condoms. They've actually come up with what they call condom dispensers that are actually installed at gates, at dormitories, at dining halls, and everywhere at these institutions, because they want children to have access to the condoms. They have even gone ahead as well, because Masingo, you know, is actually situated along the busiest highway that we have in Zimbabwe, Harare Masingo Bay Bridge Highway. So they have actually gone there, starting from a place called Ngondu, coming up to Masingo, going a little bit further to Roy as they are going into Masingo, to Mutare, They've also gone to go to Mpandawana, and they are actually putting these dispensers, condom dispensers, because they are also thinking that the AIDS in Masvingo is actually being caused, or the HIV rather, is actually being caused by the truckers that actually ply that route. And of course, they are actually causing and spreading this disease in Masvingo province. So as a starting point, that's what they're actually going to do, and they've already started doing that. Simply because they are saying they want to combat the spread of HIV positive. One of the statistics actually says pharmacies and all those places, hospitals, clinics that actually dish out family planning methods of tablets per se, in particular, they actually ran out of these tablets. When an investigation was done, it was actually discovered that many of the tablets were actually being bought by young girls from tertiary institutions or from tertiary educations. So our young girls are interested in preventing pregnancy, but they are not worried about HIV itself. That's a pity. That's a story which I actually want to talk to you about this morning. So, what is causing all this problem? Now that we actually have documented statistics of you young people who are actually HIV positive when you are in a tertiary institution, already you have ruined your future, which you are actually trying to share. Every parent takes that with concern. Why are we concerned as parents? Because either you have a child who is in a tertiary institution now, or you have a child that was in a tertiary institution a few months or few years ago, or you are going to have a child that is going to go through a tertiary institution. If this situation is going to remain as is, we actually don't have generations from today. So what do? What is the problem? How can we try and address this? I know that if you ask the government and all the other non-governmental organizations, that's why they are pouring in money into the National AIDS Council so that condoms, many of them can actually be bought and they are going to be distributed to young children. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more just later. But for now, I want us to look at some things that are causing all this to happen. I'm talking to you young people who have been to tertiary institutions, who are in tertiary institutions, who are going to be in tertiary institutions. I want you to be very careful and listen to what I'm saying and consider it as a word that is coming from your parent. We want you. We want your future. We want to secure it. But how can we secure it? Two things that I have actually seen that are actually causing all these statistics to solve. The first one is lack of self-control. What am I talking about? If you go to Galatians chapter 5, when the Apostle Paul was dividing two things that he actually called the works of the flesh and the works of the Spirit. There are things that he actually said were works of the Spirit. And among those things, one of the things that he actually mentioned as important is self-control. Of course, he talks about kindness. Of course, he talks about long-suffering. Of course, he talks about patience. He talks about many other things. But he also talked about self-control. And what is self-control? You are in a tertiary institution to get education so that you can actually develop yourself career-wise. But when you go in there, you can't resist the advances of these old men or these old women who are actually coming to you as sugar mummies and sugar daddies because you are lacking self-control. In that regard, I want you to consider some young people that are mentioned in the Bible. If we go to chapter 37 of the book of Genesis, there is a story of a young man. At that particular time, the Bible mentions him as only aged 17, and his name is Joseph. But Joseph, between chapter 37 to chapter 41, when he gets promoted to become the second in charge in the foreign country of Egypt, you can actually, by the time that he's appointed to be prime minister, so to speak, in chapter 41, he was aged 30. But by the time that is mentioned in chapter 37, he was only 17 years. That's around the time that he's actually going to be sold by his brothers to go into a foreign land. But when he went into this foreign land, he was not carried away by the idolatry that was happening in Egypt. In fact, I'm not going to talk much about Joseph. You probably know the story or probably want to go and read it. Starting from chapter 37 of the book of Genesis up to chapter 41, you will get the story of what I'm saying. In fact, chapter 37, chapter 39, then you can actually jump to chapter 40 and chapter 41. That's where he is actually mentioned. But I want you to take an example of Joseph, who actually went in. In chapter 39, Joseph is actually going to be tempted by Potiphar's wife. But because he actually had self-control, he ended up in jail. That story is known. But this is Joseph, who is a young man. Are you ever going to go into a foreign territory where your parents are not going to be? The answer is yes. You are actually going to be going to these tertiary institutions where you are trying to get education. You are not going to go with your mother. You are not going to go with your father. Some of you are actually going to even go to foreign countries or foreign places where your father, your mother is not there. Are you going to behave like Joseph when you actually get there? Think about this other young lady who is actually called Esther in the book of Esther. When she actually went into the Persian Empire to become queen after replacing Queen Vashti, what actually happened to her? She actually changed the course of the Israelites. But she was young. When we come to the New Testament, we have other young people that are actually mentioned in there. One of them is actually a young man called Timothy. When the Apostle Paul writes a letter to that we know as 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy today, in one of those letters, he actually says about Timothy, I know the faith that actually resided in your grandmother first, whose name was called Lois, and it also came into your mother, whose name was called Eunice, and that faith is now in you. I presume it's in you. So use that faith, fan the flame in you so that you can be influential. Think about Titus, who was given this role to appoint elders, young as he was. But Paul says the reason why I left you at Crete was so that you can actually finish that which was unfinished and appoint elders in every church. He is talking to young people. You have a role to play. But you can only have that role to play if you are able to control yourself. But the second thing that causes all these problems and all these statistics is peer pressure. When the Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 in particular, depending on the version that you are reading, the Bible basically says, bad company corrupts good character. And that's the bottom line. When you go into a college, you would be going into a college after you would have spent 7 years at least in primary. You would have spent at least 6 years in secondary. Already you have been in the school system for about 13 years. If we are talking about today where they even have 2 more years in primary, you are actually talking about 15 years. Now we have just gone into a college where you are actually going to be in there for a year or probably 2 or maybe 3 years. Are you going to allow the joy, the happiness of 1 year to ruin the rest of your life? Some of you are going to go into a college coming from a humble background where your parents cannot afford to spoil you. And you are actually going to meet those whose parents can spoil them. They are able to give them everything. So every lunch, when you are actually going to be having your maputi, they are actually going to be having a pizza. Are you going to be able to resist that? Because the only way to counter that is not to phone back to the parents and ask for more money because you know they don't have money. In fact, they are even struggling to send your siblings to school. What they can be affording is your fees. So what are you going to do? That's when the sugar mummies are actually going to come in for the boys, and that's where the sugar daddies are actually going to be coming in to try and fill the gap. And are you going to allow them to spoil your life? Because they certainly are going to come, and they are going to be dicing and enticing you with lots of money because they have that money. But do you have enough self-control to resist all those temptations? I want you to think seriously about this. But now, what am I saying? Am I saying this is easy for you to resist these temptations when you go into these foreign territories? The answer certainly is no. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. What is actually going to make it difficult are some of the things that I'm going to discuss now. The first of those things is the wayward behavior, which is now being rewarded by the world that we are living in. We are living in a world that actually rewards wayward behavior, shameful behavior, which actually is dignified. Just across the border into South Africa, these past few years, we have had a woman who all of a sudden came from zero to hero simply because of a wayward behavior. You might know the woman that I'm talking about. This woman who actually came in the open and she actually said to everybody, I don't wear a pants because I want to be myself. So when she goes clubbing and she is dancing, she actually has what is called a get down as she's dancing coming down. And you can imagine, there's nothing that's going to be left for imagination as she's actually dancing. That's a chilling story. But what's happening? Big companies are falling on one another to endorse her. And they want you to be their face of their adverts. Such a shameful behavior, which actually is promoting promiscuity, which is promoting prostitution, which is darkness in front of God. The companies are endorsing it. And they are actually getting that lady to actually put her in front of their billboards because they want to push their products simply because she has made a name in such a way. Is that going to be affecting you? Of course, as a young girl, you will be, because you are reading about this lady and you are looking at how much money she has made by being wayward, and you might be tempted to also want to be the same. We equally have, in equal measure, our own wayward girls as well in Zimbabwe. And this just past week, we actually have another lady that actually is making airwaves. Why? Because she posted, when she was on a beach, she posted her pictures nude. She was naked. So when somebody was asking her and people were castigating her, she actually said, this is art. I'm expressing myself. This is art. What is art in becoming naked? So when that Ethiopian airline plunged and it killed over 100 plus people, she actually posted another picture and she said, I am actually mourning those that are dead. And so many companies also, Zim companies, that is, some of them have endorsed here, and they actually want here to be their face of their products. Wayward behavior being rewarded. And according to us in the world, if somebody makes money, we actually say, this is a blessed person, they have been rewarded, their life is rewarded. But are they getting that money from good sources? We are living in a world, and you too, the young people, where the best adverts, if you go on television, if you go on social media, the best adverts that you find catchy are the adverts of beer. It's dry, but you can drink it. But on the bottle, they've actually written alcohol may be hazardous to your health, but still it's drinkable, even though it's dry, but you can still drink it. Think about the tobacco. I mean, what with, especially in our context in Zimbabwe, we are actually told the single product that rakes in millions of dollars. Right now, starting from next week, they say the tobacco floor is actually going to open, and they are expecting to rake in 900 million, close to $1 billion US dollars. So it's the single product that actually brings in foreign currency into the country. More than gold. When they are talking about fine, if they combine all the mining things, mining products, mining minerals, they will actually leapfrog tobacco. But if they are actually going to say diamond there, gold there, uranium there, this and that, tobacco actually becomes number one. So because of that, it's actually being promoted in the country. Because China brings in so many billions or so many millions when they actually come and buy our tobacco. Some of the best adverts that you can actually see are the adverts of tobacco. But again, the packet of tobacco is written, smoking may be hazardous. So if it's hazardous, why are you selling it to people? That's the kind of world that we are living in, and it's not going to be easy for you to be unique. We are living in a world where millions of dollars are poured into adverts or even manufacture of condoms. I said I will talk a little bit more about it earlier on when these guys are dishing out condoms as if they are going out of fashion. I'm not going to talk about that. In fact, there's a lot of activists who are actually saying even church people also should actually start distributing. Imagine we had a condom dispenser by the foyer there. Imagine the preacher coming here and he's actually telling you to condomize. I said this is a hard talk. They want you to take it as it is. Because if I don't tell you, somebody is still going to tell you. Are you hearing the word condomize for the first time from me? Certainly not. So somebody has already told you about it. So I'm just trying to tell you how dangerous that is. And I'm not going to tell you to condomize. Because that's not for you. This morning we were actually talking about marriage. And it's interesting that some of these things are just falling in place. Marriage is reserved for two people that are staying together, who are legally married as husband and wife. In fact, I once worked with a man, my boss, when I was still in the police. So every year, every station, Hillside, for example, they would actually come and do an inspection, what is called inspection. So the officer commanding the province would actually come, or he would send one of his deputies. So when they come in there, they are actually inspecting everything from the way police are dressed and everything. Then after that, they are going to sit down and have a lecture with you. So while they are actually having a lecture, they are looking into your welfare and a number of other things that they are actually coaching you as life skills. So this man, I like him, and I still remember what he used to say. Of course, one of the things that he would always say was one of the things that we talked about now, where somebody, once you are promoted to become a sergeant, you also want a new wife. And when you are promoted to become the assistant inspector, you also want a new wife. So at the end of the day, now that you have 11 ranks in the police, how many wives are you going to have? When you want to get a wife at each rank, you would actually talk about that. But what is relevant, what I'm talking about is, he would actually say, never allow people to lie to you and tell you that you should use condoms. Then he would go deeper. They would say, go deeper, Papa. That's what they would say now. So he would actually go deeper, and he would actually say, the moment that you are getting hold of a condom and you want to use it, ask yourself a question and say, why do you want to use it? And who do you want to use it to? Because ordinarily with your wife at home, you don't use it. So it means what you want to do is illegal. So don't do it. And I'm saying the same thing to you today. The world is going to advertise them, plenty. They are even going to tell you that some have flavors, as if it's something that you are chewing. But what I'm saying is this: that's not for you. That's sexual immorality, which is not allowed. Preserve your virginity. If you go back to the passage that we were reading now, Israel actually had a way of punishing those that would have done wayward things. If a man got you and he wanted to marry you, and he discovered that you were not a virgin, they would actually stone you to death. That's why I deliberately chose that passage. Because they wanted you to preserve. In fact, it ended up in verse 21 by saying, so that you can purge the evil in Israel. That was evil then. It's still evil today. Don't lose your virginity to somebody who is not your husband. The same applies to you, young boy. Don't lose it to somebody who is not your wife. Are you following me? But you are living in a world where abortion has been legalized. And somebody will tell you that, well, what did you want me to do? After all, it was an unwanted pregnancy. But I have always said, no, that's not correct. Pregnancy comes via a process. You don't just wake up with a pregnancy. You have to do something for you to be pregnant. Unless if you have been raped. Otherwise, what I'm saying is it's a voluntary process. So how can a voluntary process, which comes from there to here, produces a byproduct that is unwanted? To me, that doesn't make sense, and it will never make sense. If somebody falls pregnant, they wanted to fall pregnant. Because in the first place, they should not have engaged in that process that actually is going to give pregnancy at the end. But our world is actually telling us that abortion is legalized. If you go to South Africa, almost everywhere, you bump into posters of people that are advertising that we are architects and experts in abortion. Come to us and we will take that abortion painless. But what is God saying when you do that? We are living in a world where gays and lesbians are given rights and they are given voices. It's very interesting that if you read Genesis chapter 19, you will actually see God destroying the wall of Sodom and Gomorrah. And one of the reasons was when the messengers of God were sent to come to talk to Lot, men of the area, they actually ganged up around Lot's house and they wanted to break it down. Why? Because we want to know those men Canaan. They wanted to sodomize them. And God was not happy. And of course, the whole clan was destroyed. If you read the book of Judges chapter 19, you find another story of people that actually came, the Benjamites, who actually came and they wanted to sodomize a certain priest. Yet the world that we are living in today would actually tell you that there's nothing wrong in homosexuals. There's nothing wrong in gays or lesbians. Everything is okay. They are even demanding rights. You are living in a world where prostitution has been dignified. And instead of it being called by its name, which deserves all the condemnation, people are actually now calling it commercial sex. And some are even calling it the world's oldest profession. Is prostitution a profession? How come you can call it a profession? How come the world is actually calling it, they are dignifying it like I said, and they are even now calling it a commercial sex. So those people that are engaging in it are now being called commercial sex workers. That's shameful. And that's the world that you are living in, where in one time or another, you are probably going to find yourself working for a marketing company, which is supposed to be crafting these adverts. You are living in a world where courts of law are being established to legally terminate pregnancy and terminate marriages. You are living in a world where dressing has become something that is not important at all. I remember a friend of mine who was saying, hey, you know, what is happening nowadays is when girls are dressed, their dresses are becoming lower from the top, they are coming down, and they are also coming up from the bottom, they are coming up. So you can imagine, at one time in the future, they are actually going to meet here. So they have nothing there, they have nothing here, because they don't care today. You are living in a world where you now see boys who are not even worried. We don't want to see this part of yours. We don't want to see it. But they don't care. Most of the dressing they have, no belt, nothing. If they just bend, you see the whole part. What for? What for? Don't you think that your body is important? Why do you think it should be seen by everybody? There are parts of your body that should not be seen by everybody. That should be seen by certain people or a certain person in your life. Why are you showing us? We have no business to see that. We are living in a world where young men are actually doing that. And we are also living in a world where even the whole minister, I'm here, Matthew is here, and he is fresh from Uganda. We have actually seen this controversy that is actually is in the papers, where the world minister of tourism in Uganda has actually come up as a way of attracting tourists to Uganda. So he has actually decided that there's going to be what is called a Miss Cave contest. So those girls with caves and caves are actually going to be attracting the tourists to come to Uganda. That's absurd. That's absurd. We live in a world where they actually tell you there is what is called modeling, where you are actually watching a young girl walking all the way from here to there, naked. Naked. They are naked as they are modeling. And people are dignifying that. And they are telling you it's a contest. Somebody has to win, and he's going to go to China to represent Zimbabwe. She's Mrs. Zimbabwe. What did you win? a modeling contest. You won, showing your body off, and you fly to China, and you are happy. We have some sports, weightlifting, where somebody's virtually naked. Just a small thing. and the world is endorsing that. And they are saying that's fine. What is fine about that? What is fine about that? If somebody can tell me what fine means, what is fine about that? So I'm saying, my children, this is the world that you are actually living in, and you are actually going to be facing these challenges as you go through your education. But what are you going to do? I want to end by telling you this story. If you know a sheep that, not a sheep, an animal, but the sheep, it's this big boat. A big boat needs much water to be able to perform. So a ship does not sink because there is much water around it. No. If it has much water around it, it's very happy because it can actually perform. But the ship will only sink if water that is around it comes into it. Are you getting the point? You are actually going to be living in muddy waters because this world does not have water that is calm. The world that you are living in is not a friendly world at all. But don't allow the surroundings to affect you. You may not sink because of the surroundings that are around you, but you can only start to sink if you allow the surroundings to affect your behavior. Joseph went into Egypt, one of the countries that were known for idolatry. So he was, everywhere he turned, there was idolatry. He did not sink, he actually swam. He was a very good swimmer. In all those adverse conditions, he was a swimmer. Because he did not allow the surroundings to affect his behavior. So when you go to a college which is far away from your parents, be like Joseph. Swim. Don't allow the outside to affect you. Just like the ship. Swim and never allow water to come in. Because the moment you let it in, you are going to sink. Turning to the parents as well. I think I also have a word or two for you. We are at times not helping these young people because as parents we set our own targets which are not their targets. At times we actually have a picture of a daughter-in-law in mind who probably is not the same picture that my son has. We actually have a picture of a son-in-law in mind who is probably not my daughter's son-in-law. So what we do as parents, we actually exert pressure on. Is marriage all about money? Is it all about being married by an engineer even if there is no love? Is it all about being married by somebody who has money even if somebody is a non-drunkard, even if somebody is a non-womanizer, simply because he's an engineer? I'm going to get Lobola, so he's the right person. Is that what we want as parents for our children? So let's help them in this way. Let us set a stage for them. In chapter 6 of the book of Ephesians, it actually talks about the children, obey your parents in the Lord. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, verse 1, for this is right. But in verse 2 it says, honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. Verse 3, that it may go well with you and that may live long in the land. But I want verse 4, which says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but you must bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Bring them, I think in the nature, King James Version says, in the nature and admonition of the Lord. What does that mean? When we are bringing them up, we are supposed to bring them according to the Lord's dictates. So I'm challenging you as parents to set stages for them. What are some of the stages that you may set? Hillside does not have a girl that wants to be married now, and maybe my son wants to marry now. Let me try and make him mix and mingle with other Christians, young Christians that can be married at that time somewhere else. Let us not confine ourselves to this place. If we hear about a youth meeting of the Lord's people that is going about somewhere, let us make sure that we actually make our children be exposed to them. Chances are high, if you expose your child to teachers, she will be married by a teacher. That's a fact of life. If you expose them to drunkards, she or he will marry a drunkard. Because that's the situation that he or she knows. So if you also make them see these other young girls, plenty of them very beautiful, in those meetings, Christian girls, Christian boys, not at Hillside but elsewhere. Let's help them as parents, our children, because they need your tender help. When Isaac was due to marry, Abraham made sure he was involved. How was he involved? He gave a stern instruction to his servant to say, I don't want you to get a wife for my son here in Canaan. Go back to my home and you get a wife for him there. He walked all the way from Canaan to come and get a wife for him here. When Jacob was also going to marry, his mother, his father were very much involved. And what are they going to do? They are actually going to dispatch him from here. They will tell him to go to Aram so that you can marry among my relatives. We can do the same with our children as we try and remove them and take them away from these 60% statistics of the HIV. I rest my case.